We continue our discussion with the leader of the Nation of Islam, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. Listen, there's been so much that's gone on in the world in terms of this seemingly endless confrontation between the West and the East. And by that I mean largely the Christian-dominated West and the Muslim-dominated East. And it's resulted in this Arab Spring, Egypt changing over. We saw a change in Tunisia. We see a battle going on in Syria. And curiously, in this whole issue, we saw the uprising in Libya. And yet of all the areas that I've mentioned, Libya was the one that America and NATO thought it right to lend support to the rebels. What's that all about?
Well, as you know, our big brother up north has always supported dictatorships. As long as those dictators in political power granted the corporate structure in America access to the raw materials of that country. So here in Egypt was Mubarak, and for 30 years he was supported by all the American presidents. And in the election they had just a few days ago, it came out that 50% of the Egyptian people are illiterate. But yet America gave Egypt billions of dollars every year, but it never went to educate the masses, and this was fine with every American president, including Brother Barack Obama. So the Arab Spring, as we as Muslims believe, that when the Mahdi comes, or that great guide for the world, that every tyrant would be set down. That's his work, and to set justice in the earth. So you can't set a tyrant down unless you awaken the masses of the people. Zbigniew Brzezinski, the former he was a national security advisor. He was recently speaking to the Council of Foreign Relations, and he used these words. He said years ago, it was easier to control 1 million people than to kill 1 million people. But today, he said, it is easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. And with a man like Steve Jobs and the internet and these electronic technology, the masses are awakening at such a fast pace, and their anger now is resulting in what has happened in Egypt, what has happened in Tunisia. But Libya was different in this sense. Did you know? Now, I come from the great America. Okay. America is $15 trillion in debt, not including Social Security and all of those entitlements. The GDP of America is now equal to the debt, and the debt is going up every day. Did you know that Gaddafi was building Libya and it had no debt? Now think about you about to have an election. You want to elect somebody who can help you manage the debt. Libya had no debt. How could he be an illegitimate leader while Barack Obama is legitimate?
No debt.
Now look at this.
Full literacy. Free.
86% of the people in Libya were learned. He had students all over the world studying, and Libya paid for their education. Free medical, free education. Everybody had a place to live free. They had cars, and out of the the oil money into the Libyan bank account of the people of Libya came a stipend every year. They had 146 tons of gold, and he was tying gold to the Libyan dinar. So everything in the world, when you buy oil, you have to buy it with a US dollar. But if he could influence the other Arab oil states to tie their currency to gold and buy, then they would kill the dollar. So he became a serious threat. And the last thing I would say, the last time I was in Libya at the meeting of the African Union, there were members of the Caribbean nations. I met Denzel Douglas, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. I met the Prime Minister of the Grenadines and St. Vincent, and others were there. And Gaddafi was going to set up a bank, and a Caribbean Development Bank, and put $1 billion in that bank so that the Caribbean nations could borrow money to develop their countries at no interest except just a few to
keep the money going.
Yes.
Keep the money going.
Now you think about that. So he became so dangerous.
You're so disappointed with the response of the other African states to the invasion?
Not only am I disappointed with their response, you know, Kwame Nkrumah was the first African president to talk about the United States of Africa. Then Gamal Abdel Nasser picked it up, and Sekou Touré and others. Gaddafi wanted to see the United States of Africa, and he so angered racist Arabs by spending money on Africa that when he was toppled, you see the result was to kill as many black Libyans and black Africans as they could. And the weakness of our African leaders, man, is very disturbing to me. But it's setting up the destruction of all of that. Because anytime you lead for the West to the detriment of your own people, it's only a matter of time before the people will rise and destroy you. I would hope that whoever becomes prime minister in Jamaica will lead for the Jamaican people and not for America.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, sir. But I have to...
On the right note.
Well, I want to finish on a soft note. What about your music? You're still playing the violin.
See, you bring a smile to my face. Well, you know, music is my first love. And I was a violinist as a young boy.
You're also the charmer.
And then I became a calypsonian. And to be very honest, you know, that love never left me. So I'm, God willing, I just finished an album. On the album, I have rap, I have gospel, I have some of the greatest musicians in the world performing with me. We have Snoop Dogg, we have Shaka Khan, we have, oh, it's true, just wonderful artists.
On this album?
On this album. And so the last, I hope, is the Damian Marley. I wrote a calypso years ago called Let Us Unite. And I have to change the lyrics because in one part of the lyric I said, they're uniting in Ghana, Guinea, Mali, and Nigeria, all over Africa. The people are getting together. Well, that ain't so now. So I got to change it.
Great to see you, sir.
Thank you so
Thank you very much
for the honor.
Yeah,
And Jamaica, I'm happy to be home. Please, I pray that God will take the frown off of your face and let you live with a smile, because Jamaica absolutely will be free.
Leader of the Nation of Islam, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan.